Welcome to the J.R. Hendrick Texan Gentleman, the podcast that deals with the early life of J.R. Hendrick. And now, reading Homefronts from Slingfield, J.R. and Jimmy. 2:50 a.m. At the ranch, Jim goes into the shack to think. The place was a night shift office. Which at one time had all of Jeremy Swain's tools and a small desk. It was one morning in July 1983 when Jim was summoned to his father-in-law's shack to get castigated about the very thought of him going to Nashville. Crap for brains. Boy, if you're gonna be faithful, you're gonna be faithful in all of it. 5 years before that, Jeremy had called Jim back to the shack at the same time that Elizabeth called her daughter to the kitchen to give the talk, saying that they had the same marriage, or Jeremy would fight for custody of J.R. He remembers in early December 1981 when Jeremy called him to the actual ranch home office saying that he would take over the majority of the time to help him and Betsy raise J.R. Stop that hesitating. I'll tell you what. I'm going to help that boy. Because you're not taking that much or too much responsibility for your boy's education. I'm taking over part of raising him. Make him a man of his word. 3:20 a.m. Elizabeth wakes up crying. Yesterday, she had told Betsy and J.R. that she was getting tired of the ranch. Ranching. Take me away from this place. 4 a.m. In the living room, Jim is reading National Review. He is impressed that William F. Buckley attacks Hillary care and its weaknesses. 6:45 a.m. Fun day this morning, riding my horse Bandit. When we moved down to the ranch, Granddad insisted that I learn to ride a horse and not to be scared of the horse. He worked with me and helped me with the feeding it and taking good care. Of course, the ranch hands were also in charge of vaccinating and all other activities dealing with the horse. At the same time, outside the ranch, Jim is listening to John Henry being interviewed on NRS radio. But he gets impatient with his ideas on how to fix the budget in 1995. And instead turn to an NFL radio station. At 8 a.m., the Hendrick family sits down for breakfast at the ranch. So I said to him, when we walked into the door after dinner, I asked him, "What the hell have they done to you, my son?" Betsy asks. "Probably because he was always a fat dork," Christine said. "Christine," Elizabeth said sternly. "Actually, he was pretty thin," Elizabeth Murray said. "I think it's a mistake if he rooms with that Charlie Nation," Jim said. "Well, we always knew that JR looks like a fat pig," Kyle said. "Well, probably has something to do with the medicine he's taking," Madison says. "I really don't want all this talk on Thanksgiving morning. Okay? Now, Jim, unless I meet Charlie myself, I'm not passing judgment," Betsy said. "Has anybody ever thought to ask JR what he wants instead of judging him?" 8:40 a.m. Front porch. Grandma and I are talking about Granddad and how much he loved the ranch. 12 p.m. Springfield family Thanksgiving lunch. An old-time family tradition. Started by Granddad. Chicken and dressing. Mashed potatoes. Deviled eggs. Ham. Cinnamon rolls. Strawberry Coca-Cola cake, a recipe from Grandma Hendrick. Pumpkin pie, pecan pie, chocolate pie, and giblet gravy. There was Coke for us to drink, and plenty of beer from Mama, Daddy, Kyle, Madison, and Grandma. 2:30 p.m. While the men in the living room are watching NFL football, and the women in the den are watching Lifetime, Jerry is in his room watching an April 1994 debate between Andrew House and Bob Horton. And though Horton scored some good points to JR, Andrew House won the debate. At lunch, Thomas promises JR a new computer before Christmas. 3:10 p.m. Florida Charlie's request, I had taken out of the home office a magazine of Daddy's American models in swimsuits. I told Charlie that I would only cut out 4 pictures. 4 p.m. With Claude gone, and Claude and Becky gone, Jim is bored by the Dallas Cowboys and asked Betsy to accompany him upstairs to talk and hold each other. 6 p.m. The family sits down for their second round of Thanksgiving dinner. Discussion that night was a piece written in the Fort Worth Times, written by Liz Graham. This particular front page editorial deals with America's perceptions of Hillary Rodham Clinton. 8 p.m. The family is gathered around the den to bring up the family Christmas tree. Elizabeth is nervous about her appointment tomorrow with Dr. Theodore. November 25th, 1 a.m. Waking up, Elizabeth reads a romance novel to keep her mind off her appointment with Dr. Theodore. The thought of having cancer again and to go through endless rounds of chemotherapy made her sick inside. 3:15 p.m. Jim is in his ranch office when he sees his mother-in-law reaching for some whiskey to make some tonic. A trick she learned from her mother and husband. With nothing on the news and documentaries, Jim turns on his computer for the Hendrick report. 2 news stories did almost make him want to turn away from the website. It was about China's human rights violations. But one story that fascinated him was the jeers that Mariah Carey was getting for having a Macy's Thanksgiving show. Now he could care less about Mariah Carey, but he knew that Betsy liked her because she was down with the kids. Jim was more into Elton John, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Aretha Franklin. He considered any music not by those two from 1975 to be noise.
Hope you enjoy listening to the J.R. Hendrick Texan Gentleman. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, become a part of the adventure. This is the James Hendrick Empowerment saying, get ready for the rest of the story. It's going to get more interesting from here.